Very intense shouting match.
The terms of any deal.
She's asking, what if Russia breaks the
Donald Trump and
What if they
Saka.
What if anything? What if a
UK
bomb
24.
drops on your head right now? Okay? What if they broke it? I don't know. They broke it with Biden because Biden, they didn't respect him. They didn't respect Obama. They respect me. Let me tell you, Putin went
I
through a
don't
hell
think
of a
so,
lot.
mate.
He went through a phony witch hunt. I don't think he'd be a tough guy without the United States. And your people are very brave. But you're either going to make a deal or we're out. And if we're out, you'll fight it out. I don't think it's going to be pretty, but you'll fight it out.
You're bully, Trump.
But you don't have the cards.
You're bully.
Once we sign that deal, you're in a much better position. But you're not acting at all thankful. And that's not a nice thing. I'll be honest.
Put a thumbs up the right side of the screen.
All right.
Let me know what you think about this shouting
We've seen
match.
enough. What do you think?
He's bully, but this bully, Donald Trump, doesn't
Great
listen.
television, I will say that.
They were then meant to sit down and enjoy a working
Please
lunch
subscribe, Michelle, and
before
sign
signing a deal that had already been agreed to allow American access to critical mineral mining in Ukraine. Instead,
This is tense, man. This is
President
tense, man.
Zelenskyy was instructed to leave the White House.
Oh, that's cruel.
Donald Trump posted on social media, "I've determined that President Zelenskyy is not ready for peace if America's involved, because he feels our involvement gives him a big advantage in negotiations. He disrespected the United States of America in its cherished Oval Office.
He didn't.
can come
He
back when he's ready
didn't.
for peace."
It's you that did, Trump. You
As he
bully.
got ready to leave, the cameras
What a
lined up,
horrible
ready
person.
to catch Mr. Zelenskyy.
You know the
being
person
expelled
is
from
the
White
problem.
House.
It's him, not him. The other bloke in the Oval
Driving away,
Office.
he
Trump,
blown his one
Trump,
big
Trump,
chance to
the
get
bully.
on
Donald
his
Trump,
side.
the bully.
He knows he needs American backing to fight
Bully.
the war. He needs American support to get what he wants in any peace deal. Right now, he's made an enemy of the one man he really needs as an ally.
Oh, I don't blame him. If Ukraine stand on its own,
There was meant to have
Europe's
been a
hope,
joint press
with Europe,
conference after a
Europe's
private
hope,
meeting.
Europe's
So the
hope.
two leaders would announce what
So
they
be
had
it.
agreed, the ways in which they saw eye to eye. But there was absolutely no common understanding. There was absolutely nothing to say. Sarah Smith, BBC News.
Trump's
Washington.
the problem. He needs to grow up and get a bloody pair of
we will have
legs.
the very latest with Sarah in just a moment. But as we
Donald
saw
Trump's
there,
a
the
bully.
audience was full of
Bully,
journalists
bully,
as that
bully.
row was going on. One
Down
of them was
him.
Daniel Wittenberg
Down
from the
him.
BBC World Service, and he joins me now. And Daniel, just give us a sense of the mood, the atmosphere, the responses from people as they were in that room.
The public in
listening to
America
them,
are out of
speaking to
oars
each
with
other in
Mr.
that
Trump.
room.
They've lost faith in him. Everyone has. What a bully.
Yeah, the Oval Office full of journalists, full of open jaws.
Don't like
no
him.
one
I
around
don't like
me,
him.
including seasoned
Even
White
the
House
people in America,
correspondents,
in the UK,
couldn't
had lost
believe what was
faith in
happening
him.
in front of us, in
Bully.
front of the world. There were people who had seen a
He
lot of
needs to
dramatic
help out
days,
Ukraine.
particularly in the Trump White House, but nothing like this, they told me. And Jane, it started off so normal.
Not the way to
There were
talk
the
to
usual
someone
greetings,
in the Oval
warm
Office.
handshakes,
That's disgusting.
President Zelenskyy giving President Trump a gift, a boxing belt belonging to the Ukrainian boxer Alexander Usyk. But then, as reporters started hurling questions at each of the leaders, the other raised an eyebrow here, had an awkward silence there, the tension was rising, and then it really went up a level, or the gloves came off, like in an Usyk boxing game, when Vice President J.D. Vance chipped into an answer that President Trump had given, and then President Zelenskyy disagreed with them both. Vance was quick to point out that they were litigating an argument in front of the world's media, and none of them were happy about it. And from then on, the frustration just started to boil over, and no one could believe it. And then when we were told to leave the Oval Office,
I'm not
everyone
surprised.
stood still, silent, stunned. No one could believe it, Jane.
Daniel, thank you. Daniel Wittenberg.
I can't believe Donald Trump's behaviour over it. He's a bully. He's a crybaby. Crybaby Donald Trump. Crybaby.
What's happening there, Sarah?
We don't want people like that, do
I
we?
think he's getting ready to leave to fly
He's not a
to
professional
London,
president
where
of
he'll be
America.
having some more meetings,
He's a
but
silly man.
I cannot overstate how serious
Really
what
silly.
happened here at the White House earlier today.
Donald
is
Trump
for
hadn't.
him,
His
and
temper
for
went
the
through the
peace
roof.
process
It's a
in
problem
Ukraine.
with him.
We know Donald Trump can be loud and brash and bombastic, but he doesn't get angry like this
This
in
is
public. I
so,
can't
so-
recall ever having seen
this
him
is
so
bad.
furious, and especially in a
This
meeting
is
we
very,
started out
very
really
bad,
quite
Donald Trump.
civilly, as Daniel was saying there.
We don't want him.
There are reports tonight that Donald Trump's actually considering ending all ongoing shipments of military aid to Ukraine because of what happened in the
Oh,
Oval Office
that is
today. That
cruel.
is how serious this is, because Donald Trump does not like to be disrespected. He does not like to be disagreed with in public. He will be furious.
He's a child, isn't he? Who wants that guy in charge of America?
Let's not
I
forget.
don't.
mean, this route
Need to get him out. Impeach the president of America. Impeach him. Someone impeach him. He's gone beyond reasoning.
And Donald Trump will not have been persuaded by anything the Ukrainian
Oh, I
president
don't like
has to
Elon
say
Musk.
today. So
The crooks are
if Vladimir
they're cooking
Zelensky is
6
to
million
get
heirs
back
with
to the
the
table
power-
to
in
talk
power-
about
in
this,
charge
he
of
must
America.
give a really hefty
This
portion of
is
humble pie first.
dark times for America. I
I would
know
say
they're
that
only
when
dark
they do
times.
resume talks, if they do resume talks, he'll be expected to sign up to a lot of what America wants him to agree to before they'll ever agree to move forward with this.
Crooked man.
Sarah, many thanks.
Well,
Sarah
that's my
Smith.
opinion.
Well, let's assess the response inside Ukraine itself. Our correspondent James Waterhouse is in the capital.
It's a dark
Kyiv.
times for
What have
Ukraine.
people been saying where you are, James?
We might have to increase our GDP a lot quicker than planned for
Going into
2027.
these
That's right.
talks, these were high stakes. This wasn't just about a mineral deal for Ukraine.
course
This
it
was
wasn't.
about a hope that it might entice America to engage with this country on a deeper level when it comes to military
Well,
support.
they won't be giving the minerals away now.
In a
Ukraine will.
post-war world even.
So kids, wait, let's
Hopefully
get
it's
this in
not
Europe.
again, but
We'll
you just
take
need
it.
to look at the expression of
Screw
it.
America. We'll take that in the UK. Those minerals are worth it to us a lot of money.
US, she was in the Oval Office, and when the wheels started to come off, when you saw President Zelensky's defensive body language, and you saw this near coordinated shouting assault by the US president,
It's
and vice
disgusting.
president, it became clear that nothing
Shambles.
constructive for Ukraine was going to come
The
out.
president of
it.
America
It
is a
was
shambles.
quite extraordinary
Child.
and high stakes,
Oh,
because
silly.
as Sarah was saying there, we are still talking about Ukraine's biggest ally. If you were watching Ukrainian TV, events were reported in quite a measured, straight way. They referred to a mineral deal that was expected to be signed, not happening. And from the reaction you see online and from the people you speak to here in the capital, there broadly is an appreciation for President Zelensky holding his ground, because
Of course it is.
ultimately
Don't blame him.
this is still a existential war, widely seen so. And so for President Zelensky to fold to terms unfavourable by the US, imposed by the US, that wouldn't equate to a ceasefire, then that would amount to a defeat. That really is still the belief, despite everything this country has gone through. We spoke to some people who were simply processing what they saw.
Trump's administration was so arrogant.
Of course it was. Disgusting.
You know, when you look
It's
at
a pig,
Zelensky's
innit?
face,
It's
you
a pig.
understand that the discussion behind the closed doors was not so polite, because they are so rude. They don't respect people of Ukraine, and
They don't respect anyone, mate.
they even don't hide it.
Crooked.
And it's
They're billionaires.
incredibly unpleasant to
They're
see
crooked.
this
They're
reaction
crooked.
from the
6
current,
billionaires. 6 billionaires in the fucking Oval Office. In there. In that fucking part. In the
I
party.
understand our president. Maybe it was not a very diplomatic conversation, but it was very sincere. We're trying to tell about what's going on. Unfortunately, for some reason, President Trump has a bit of a wrong idea.
He's not a nice bloke, Trump, is he? He's a crooked man.
From the side,
He's not understanding
looks like
enough.
They support Russia, and they ignores everything.
He just cares about Russia, that's what Trump cares about.
The war in Ukraine, the Russian-Ukrainian war, and they think like, okay, we can trade, we can deal, so we can forget.
Trump
it,
doesn't
but
care about
we
our
can't.
security. All he cares about is himself. He's a crooked man, isn't he? Really
Now, the
crooked man.
majority of European allies, with the exception of Hungary, which is an ally of Russia, they have rallied around President Zelensky. We had a post from Friedrich Merz, the next Chancellor of Germany. He said, we must never confuse the aggressor and victim. We had a similar sentiment from the French President Emmanuel Macron. And we also heard from Ukraine's neighbour, the Prime Minister of Poland, Donald Tusk, who simply said to Ukraine, you are not alone. It's been interesting seeing President Zelensky individually thank each post in solidarity.
We're back you, Mr.
online.
Zelensky.
Even still
If you think the
thank
crooked man in America has no fucking care for you,
as he continues
he
to
can
work,
go to
work
he can go
what
to
we call
he can go to hell for all I care.
a ceasefire deal, whether it's related to a mineral agreement or otherwise, a ceasefire deal that contains a military assurance in some way from America. Instead, today could have been the moment that America cut Ukraine loose, leaving it with its European allies to try and work out just how they will stand up to Russian aggression in the future. Tonight, Jane, sirens have gone once more. Sirens have wailed, as they do in cities across Ukraine, and Ukraine feels a slightly lonelier country tonight after what we saw in the Oval Office.
Disgusting.
James,
Donald Trump
thank you,
doesn't care.
James Waterhouse.
He's a
Let's
crooked
talk
man.
to our Russia editor Steve Rosenberg as well. He joins us from
Oh,
Moscow.
I don't think this
Any
is right.
reaction,
It's all
Steve,
wrong.
from the Kremlin?
Don't trust the Russians. No one trusts the Russians.
So far,
Trump's just an idiot. He's a fool. I think Putin has something on Donald Trump, in my opinion. Some something dirty on Trump. Trump's scared of him. He's a wimp. Trump is. Coward.
And you can just imagine Vladimir Putin sitting right there in front of the television set,
laughing,
enjoying the spectacle
of
his enemy, the leader of the country he invaded 3 years ago, being so publicly rebuked by the President of the United States and the Vice President of the United States.
Guy in charge of America. He needs to go to the hell's end.
From Vladimir Putin.
It's not right.
We had that comment from Dmitry Medvedev, the former Russian president, who is now deputy head of the Russian Security Council. He, on social media, wrote that after what had happened, he hopes that America will stop military assistance to Ukraine. Of course, that's what the Russians would love to happen. It's been an incredible 2 weeks or so, which turned everything on its head. It began with the Putin-Trump telephone call on February the 12th, the start of US-Russian talks, with no concessions coming from Moscow.
Yeah, that's disgusting.
We had the Munich Security Conference and that open schism between America and Europe, and now the breakdown in relations between the United States and Ukraine. And throughout all of this, there has been no sign that Moscow is ready to make any concessions, ready for compromise, ready to give back any of the territories it has seized over the last 3 years. And after what we saw in the White House, that will not have changed. Quite the opposite, I think.
Jesus Christ, Michelle. I'm Simon Jones. Thanks for watching this video. Tomorrow I'll be happy.
Let's get the thoughts of our political editor Chris Mason and our international editor Jeremy Bowen. And Jeremy, still all digesting everything that we witnessed in the Oval Office in the last few hours. Your thoughts about what it means for President Zelensky himself and the war more broadly?
Well, that relationship between Zelensky and Trump was strained in the very... Before he went in there, Trump has told actually repeated lies about Zelensky and about Ukraine and about the war, saying that Russia did not, well, saying that Ukraine started it.
It didn't start the war. Russia
I
did.
think at the end of that, clearly,
we know the truth.
The relationship between Ukraine, the Ukrainian government and the White House is in pieces. But there's also a serious looming security crisis between West European members of NATO and the Americans, I think, because there's very different views. You've seen that in all those supportive messages that came out.
Yeah, from France especially.
Well, with Ukraine, we are supporting Ukraine. They see Russia as a threat. They do. Trump, on the other hand, sees Russia as not just somewhere you can do a deal with. It seems to be his priority to do a deal with.
He's scared of Russia's leader,
Ukraine,
Putin.
and by extension, the security of Western Europe. He's made big concessions already to the Russians, put massive pressure on the Ukrainians. So you have to say, maybe this wasn't about a mineral deal. This was perhaps, even in the words of one senior source who I've spoken to, this could have been a planned mugging in the Oval Office. Because you could see that moment that when Vice President J.D. Vance, if you like, threw a hand grenade into it, it all kicked off from that point. So maybe the intention was to make that rapprochement with Russia easier and smoother by trying to marginalize Zelensky and by implication with Ukraine. And it could be that the Trump perspective on this now is very much there has to be this deal with Moscow, and if the price is forcing Ukraine to eat some humble pie at the very least, take on an agreement they don't want, well, that's the price worth paying.
Chris, and let's
I don't blame him.
Assess closer to home. I mean, Jeremy mentioned a huge number of, a lot of support coming out very quickly, really, from a lot of European leaders. You mentioned Keir Starmer at the beginning. Where are we now? Where is the UK government?
Oh, well, we're going to fall out with America now, are we?
A few minutes ago from
Downing Street. Fall out of America. Going to fall out of America now.
Spoke to both President Trump
and
President Zelensky. The spokeswoman saying that the Prime Minister retains unwavering support for Ukraine and is doing all he can to find a path to a lasting peace based on sovereignty and security for Ukraine. As you say, there'd been about 20
Trump says, why are we helping them now?
The evening. publicly
Not good.
backing Ukraine. And there was nothing from Downing Street until just a handful of minutes ago. I think what we're seeing is an attempt by Number 10 to act as something of a bridge, both between Presidents Trump and Zelensky, and indeed between Washington and Europe. Some words tonight from the Trade Minister, Douglas Alexander, who was on Radio 4's Any Questions, saying that the scenes were deeply troubling and sobering in the Oval Office, and that it demonstrated in the starkest possible terms, he said, the extent to which the world that we've experienced for the last 80 years has changed, and we're in uncharted waters. What happens next is President Zelensky flies here to London with the Prime Minister chairing this summit of European leaders, including President Zelensky.
Disgrace on Sunday, Jones.